So when I took that first sip, the heavens opened up, the angels were singing, every nerve ending in my body was electrified. Kind of like a white pancake, a white rubbery pancake. You can put it on your face.
The lips or the eyes.
It curbs your cravings for sugar. When I take that first sip in the morning on an empty stomach,
curry or stir fry.
This is Love Potion 99. My secret is, and no children. You might think, why are they adding sugar to the kombucha when it's done fermenting? I want the kombucha that has no added sugars. Well, here's the reality behind why we have to put that number there. If you can brew a cup of tea, you can brew kombucha.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Healthy Aging with Dr. Doctor. I'm Dr. Sanober Pezad Doctor, your host. Today I have a very special guest and someone that I'm very excited to have on our show. I'm not much into drinks, quite honestly, but if you know me, you know my love for kombucha. If you've never had kombucha, it is a little bubbly and kind of like flavored sparkling water, but it's just something that I enjoy having. So I decided to pester Kombucha Mama herself and get all the answers so that you and I can start brewing our next batch of kombucha ourselves. But who exactly is Kombucha Mama, you might ask? Let's meet her.
I am Hannah Crum, the Kombucha Mama, mother to mazillions of microbes around the world. My business is Kombucha Camp with a K, because we're cute and clever over here. And I started that business 20 years ago, teaching people how to brew kombucha safely out of my small home in LA. Fast forward to now, we've written the Big Book of Kombucha, which has sold over 400,000 copies in several languages around the world. I also co-founded Kombucha Brewers International, which is a trade association with my husband. And I've recently just left the president role so I can focus back on my true love and passion, which is educating people on how to brew kombucha safely at home. So I'm really excited to be connecting with you here today.
Maybe you've heard of kombucha. Maybe you drink or brew it yourself. But when I first tasted mine, and that's what Hannah actually asked me.
Before I tell you my reaction, you tell me your reaction. What was your first sip like, Dr. Doctor?
It's exciting. It actually tickled my palate and I was like, wow, this is something that I want to explore further. I was literally blown and I reached a stage where I cannot actually control the amount of kombucha that I have. So this led me to the quest of whether kombucha has any health benefits. But if you've never heard of it or if you're wondering what is kombucha, now you will know.
So kombucha is an acetic acid ferment. It's fermented tea. So we're taking tea and sugar. We're adding our mother culture, which we call a SCOBY. That stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. Together, the yeast and bacteria convert the tea and sugar into organic acids, probiotics, and other enzymes that support a healthy liver and a healthy body. Kombucha is fermented tea. So let's just think about the health benefits of tea. High in antioxidants, polyphenols, anti-cancer properties, helps, get rid of the free radicals in your body. There's so many, helps with weight loss, helps with cholesterol. Now, it's an acetic acid ferment, so that's like vinegar. So we look at what are the health benefits of vinegar. Helps with controlling sugar and alcohol, processing different things through the body. We combine these two together and we have this superpower known as kombucha. So she really embodies the best of those elements. And so in terms of anti-aging, well, what causes aging in the first place? It's stress, right? That's the thing that's going to kill us. And stress can come in the form of an unhealthy diet. It can come in the form of all the toxins that are being, sprayed on food, in the air, in the water. It can also come from being in a state of inflammation and anxiety. And so what kombucha does, and I always challenge people, when you're first trying it out, do it first thing in the morning on an empty stomach and just observe. How do you feel? Because I'll tell you how I feel. When I take that first sip in the morning on an empty stomach, it's like my organs relax. Like, when's the last time you really felt into your body and had that sensation of like, oh, everything's just relaxing and releasing? And so any way that we can reduce that load of stress on our body is going to be beneficial. So kombucha is one of many tools to do that. But the ways specifically that kombucha does that are through the gluconic and glucuronic acids. So these acids are naturally produced by the human body in our liver. And what their job is, they're like the bouncer of the liver. So toxic molecules come in, your body doesn't want you to absorb them, the liver's the filter, it filters them out. But then when you have these xenobiotics or these things that aren't supposed to be there, alcohol, prescription drugs, any of these environmental toxins we've been talking about, those acids bond to those toxic molecules and that bond can't be broken. So then through hydrolysis or going to the bathroom, peeing, we then flush those toxins out of our body. Now, if we don't create enough of these organic acids, those toxins then, because our body's so brilliant, sequesters them into our fat cells. And so as you know, and likely your patients know, it's not one instance of consuming a bad food or an exposure, it's accumulated over time. And so with kombucha, we have this gentle chelation activity that starts to occur. So first it's supporting the healthy liver, and now it's going to, over time, like the layers of an onion, you're going to get these different layers of healing benefit that come from consuming kombucha. And again, it's just one piece of a healthy diet, of a healthy lifestyle to include here. But it also does some other things as well. Specifically, it curbs your cravings for sugar. So by creating these acids, getting that into the gut, now it's also immediately going to help with digestion. So many people don't realize that acid reflux isn't that you have too much acid and therefore it needs to be neutralized with a base or an antacid. It actually means you don't have enough and your body's trying to say, hey, we need to get more sour things in here. So kombucha also helps from that perspective. So when you're able to digest your food more efficiently, more effectively, extract more nutrients from it, that's just better for your body, and you can consume less as a result because you're able to process those nutrients more efficiently. So
also, for all the anti-aging folks, if you want healthy glowing skin just as Hannah does, and I sort of do too, then listen up, my friends.
She does contain hyaluronic acid. Now again, these aren't in massive doses like if you're buying them in a supplement form. However, they're in that living form your body can instantly use. And so if you're making kombucha at home, one of the really cool benefits is you can take that SCOBY, which looks kind of like a white pancake, a white rubbery pancake, you can put it on your face. You can put it on your skin. And the benefit of that is it's going to act like a very mild acid peel. So you might go and get a procedure where someone's applying an acid to your face, and if they're not doing it right, or if it's the wrong type of acids, it could really damage your skin. Well, the low pH of the kombucha, those organic acids, are mild enough that they're going to allow the skin cells to slough off. It's going to pull circulation. It's very warming. You get a little bit red in the face. But that's also bringing oxygen and nutrients and replenishing our skin so that it can retain its youthful glow.
Wow, that was a lot of information, wasn't it? As with any fermented food like pickles, yogurt, kombucha has its own process of fermentation, and quite honestly, I am still intimidated in brewing my own kombucha. So if you're like me and want to start brewing your own kombucha but don't know how to, Hannah breaks it down for us very simply.
Right, you're going to have the ingredients for the recipe. You're going to mix them up, and maybe it'll taste good, maybe it won't, right? But the more times you engage that recipe, the more you're like, ooh, if I do this, or if I have this technique, right? You start to evolve and adapt it, and it becomes something that's really delicious. So I'll say this, your first batch may or may not turn out amazing. It might turn out amazing, but then your second batch will be like, wah, wah, and you're like, what did I do? And this is because kombucha is alive. It's a cross between a pet and a plant. Now, the good news is it's not going to crawl out of its jar and sneak into your bed and cuddle up with you at night. That's good. But like a pet and a plant, we do need to make sure it has the right brewing conditions, and namely that's temperature. And the reason for that is the yeast, which are closer on the family tree to humans than bacteria, like similar warm conditions. And so as long as you have a space where you're able to get to that 75 to 85 being ideal, yeah, we can go a little cooler. But if we're too cold, we're definitely leaving open the opportunity for mold to colonize our brew. But honestly, if you can brew a cup of tea, you can brew kombucha. Yay! It really is that simple. So all we're doing is steeping tea. We're adding in sugar, probably more than you would enjoy if you were to sip that sweet tea. We're then putting in our SCOBY, and we're leaving it alone. Like we're letting it do its process, giving it some time and space, some privacy, if you will. And that's part of the process. So after 7, 10 days, you're going to come in, you'll find a new SCOBY has grown across the top because kombucha is abundance in action. We're always getting new babies. It's highly reproductive, which is exciting and also sometimes overwhelming, but don't worry, there's lots you can do with them, including throw them away. Maybe it's helping to break down the trash. So it's not wasted. But that said, you get the new layer. And then it's also a principle of if you give an organism what it needs to thrive, it will. And you know who else that applies to? You as a human being, right? So when you're giving yourself the things that actually help you to thrive, you will. And so by caring for our kombucha, by engaging in this process, we're going to sip it. If it has the sweet sour balance we like, great. Now we take out those scobies. We take out some liquid for the next batch. It's like a little offering. You take it right off the top, and there's a specific reason for that. And then the rest of the kombucha is yours to enjoy. You can flavor with fruit, with herbs, with nothing, whatever you like. So it's basically a blank canvas that is open for your creativity. So I started with herbs in my garden, fruits in season at the farmer's market, and then I grew from there. So our book has 260 flavor inspirations, because again, I'm not here telling you what to do. I want to inspire you to make it your own. And it's really fun and creative, and you can go savory. You could do like salsa kombuchas with peppers and different things. Even in the store, we see like a mango habanero or something like this. So there's really a lot of fun, a room for fun with kombucha. Right here, I have a glass of my favorite flavor.
Wow.
This is Love Potion 99. It's blueberry, lavender, and rose petals. Now, this color is coming from the blueberries. The anthocyanins are being extracted, and it creates these lovely dynamic colors. And you probably can't see, but there's like little yeasties floating around, which again have all those B vitamins in living form. And so it's really easy to make delicious and beautiful kombuchas at home. But like anything, it's a process, and you might need a few batches to really get the hang of it, if you will. But it's also very forgiving. So if you make a mistake, you probably can recover it. And it's a food. So the only thing that's going to tell us, hey, this isn't safe to eat, is if you see mold. Right? And sometimes we see mold on bread and cheese, and we might just pick it off and eat it anyways. Well, we don't do that with kombucha because it's a liquid. The spores can be anywhere in the liquid. So we do want to dispose of a moldy kombucha and start over with a fresh one. But hey, remember, they reproduce, so you probably have a SCOBY hotel where you can grab an extra and quickly get started up again.
It doesn't sound hard at all, does it? But if you're still hesitant but want to enjoy the benefits that kombucha has all to offer, then our store-bought kombucha is an option. Let's find out.
The way to think about this is yogurt. You're probably like, what does that mean? Well, back in the 1960s, nobody could go to the store and buy yogurt. It was something that old people who lived to be old in the old mountains or in the old country, this is what they made. And it had to go from counterculture, literally, where the hippies would make it in their little yogurt warmers, and to now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And along the way, what we've seen is, of course, versions of yogurt that are more healthy and other versions that aren't as healthy, that put a lot of sugar in them. So we're going to see that evolution in kombucha as well. And I do trust and know that it is going to be like yogurt in following that trajectory, because really what we're talking about here is an ancient food that has evolved with human beings for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And so that's not going to go away. What's exciting about the commercialization is, of course, it brings it to a larger audience. And truth be told, we can't make everything, right? Like I buy my sourdough bread, I don't have time to bake it, and yet I make my own nut milk at home, right? So we're always going to be picking and choosing what are the projects or the foods I make at home versus what I'm going to buy at the grocery store. So purchasing it from the grocery store is absolutely a great place to try it from. Now you're going to find a huge range of kombuchas. And this is where our work at Kombucha Brewers International, which is the trade association I founded with my husband, comes into play. We created a kombucha code of practice. So this is where we've enshrined fermentation as the key component to kombucha. We also identify some of her organisms and whatnot, yet we leave a lot of flexibility and room, because there's also pasteurized kombucha. There's kombucha from concentrate. And you might be confused looking at the label of kombucha and you see added sugars and there's a number there. You might think, why are they adding sugar to the kombucha when it's done fermenting? I want the kombucha that has no added sugars. Well, here's the reality behind why we have to put that number there, is because we're using sugar in the primary fermentation. So for some reason, the FDA doesn't understand that fermentation actually creates a metabolic, physical, chemical change in the sugar, and it changes from sucrose into fructose and glucose, both of which have a lower glycemic impact on the body. But they haven't understood this nuance yet. And so we do have to place that in the added sugars number. So when you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, they're adding all this sugar, that's not accurate. However, that said, the ones that don't have added sugars are often fermented to a very sour level, to a product you couldn't consume. It's then diluted. Probiotics are added. Maybe there's a stevia or a monk fruit added. And so what's great about this, though, is it supports a flavor profile that personally doesn't resonate with me, right? I'm not a diet soda drinker, never could do it. It always tasted like formaldehyde to me, but that's just me. there's loads of people for whom these flavor profiles with the stevia and the monk fruit really resonate with them. And so my attitude is there's a kombucha for everyone. If you try a kombucha and the flavor is too intense for you, try a different brand. Go find the one at your local farmer's market. That one's probably going to be really fresh and dynamic and delicious, and you'll be able to ask a lot of questions of the person selling it to you. So I don't think there's a bad kombucha out there, because the reality is we have so much inflammation in our diets these days that we need all the help we can get. That said, it's true. Making kombucha at home is going to be healthier for you because you're more in control of the process. You get to curate the ingredients. You can, like me, I choose all organic ingredients. Our culture, we've been growing it for 20 years. It's an heirloom culture. It's only been cultivated in organic ingredients, and we do DNA sequencing because we want to understand what microbes are present in our brews. And so, yet again, we're elevating the bar in the industry by sharing that information publicly so people can understand some of the elements they're getting in it. Plus, there's so much microbial diversity. So while I'm sharing the top 4 or 5 strains, there's actually like 30 strains that are present in the product. And so this, I think, just helps people understand that diversity is really key. Yes, you can get Bacillus coagulans and Bacillus subtilis in like 50 to 100 different products, but you aren't a monocrop, right? We are here to be biodiverse. And so the more we can get this through traditional fermented foods, the more diverse our body is, the happier and healthier we are.
Coming back to the store-bought kombuchas, like I remember you mentioned about the different types like pasteurized and the other forms. I wasn't honestly aware about this. So if one is looking out to buy kombucha from the store, what should they look for?
Yes. And so I'm always looking for a raw kombucha, one that hasn't been pasteurized myself. That's just my personal preference. And so by looking at the bottle, so at Kombucha Brewers International, KBI for short, we are working on a seal program that'll make it super easy for consumers to understand. Just like juice, it would say on the front of the bottle if it's not from concentrate or pasteurized. So we would consider raw kombucha, because that has its own host of issues as a term legally to use, as a not from concentrate kombucha. So what that means is we're using a living kombucha. It doesn't have more than 20% water added. And that means you're going to get like a really full benefit. Now, some brands, for example, will de-alcoholize it, and then you get a really light flavor profile. And so something like a Brew Doctor, which is really focused on the tea, it's crafted to remove the alcohol. It's going to have a different use occasion for some people. It's going to have a really light profile. Other kombucha, such as the GTs, that's the person, GT Dave is the guy who put it in a bottle first back in 95, so coming about 30 years ago, and is still the market leader. That's going to be a kombucha that's very much adhered to these principles of the smaller batch and whatnot. But then you'll also find products like Health Aid, which comes in a brown bottle. I think Ryan Seacrest has been promoting it lately. And again, it's just finding the flavor profiles that work for you. There's going to be KeVita, which is pasteurized or from concentrate. And it's going to have, yet again, different flavor profiles. And so it's all about tasting it and trusting your gut.
Now, you must have heard me say this time and again, but I love drinking kombucha. So much so that people around me actually get worried seeing the amount that I drink. So I needed to ask Hannah, is it the tiny amount of alcohol that has got me addicted?
You know, all fermented foods and drinks contain alcohol for a very specific reason. So obviously we're aware of high alcohol beverages, wine and beer and things like that, that create an intoxication effect that literally have a negative impact on the liver when we overconsume them. Of course, we're also familiar with alcohol as being an original medicine. These are tinctures. These are cough syrups. We would infuse herbs. Ancient man understood that this was a powerful extractor and could provide nutrients. Plus, alcohol thins the blood. It makes it easier for your body to then absorb those nutrients. And man has always been fermenting herbs and flowers and different things they found in nature using the wild yeast that are naturally present on those plant materials. And those often don't create such high intensity alcoholic beverages, but these trace amounts of alcohol are really important. So think about it like this. When you get a wound, you might reach for a bottle of alcohol. Why? Because it's antimicrobial. And so it's going to kill the potential of any infection getting into your wound. Well, the same thing is happening in your ferment. Remember, we didn't have refrigerators 200 years ago, right? Like, of course, we grew up with them, so we're used to them existing. But the reality is most food had to be preserved either through fermentation or through different means. And so these trace amounts of alcohol in the ferment are actually there to prevent pathogenic organisms and microbes from getting into the brew that could potentially harm you as a human being. And so those trace amounts of alcohol, yes, they can potentially have a relaxing effect on the body, but more often than not, many people who feel like they're, feeling the alcohol, it's often a B vitamin. So niacin flush is something that can potentially happen as a result of drinking kombucha. And that's because yeast contain all of the B vitamins in living form, including the ever elusive B12, which is hard to get. And so some people report a feeling of euphoria, similar to getting one of those B12 shots. Again, it's a very light buzz. It doesn't last for very long. It doesn't actually impair your ability to function. And of course, anybody who's highly sensitive to alcohol, it might have a different impact on you. And so that's why we say trust your gut, which is listen to your body, see how it's responding, as opposed to mine, which of course loves kombucha and many other things.
And is there any higher limit to having kombucha? As in, can I literally overdose on kombucha and can it cause any side effects?
The question I always ask is, how do you know when you've had too many blueberries? How do you know when you've had too much shrimp? Right? Like our body instinctively understands, like we eat for enjoyment. There's no doubt about it. But the real reason we eat is because we need to feed microbes, right? Like we think, oh, we're feeding this giant human body. No, we're feeding microscopic entities that live inside and on us. And so part of this feeling good is, again, we're helping to have a healthy gut. Our gut, as we have learned, which is so exciting, is where our serotonin, our dopamine, all of our happy drugs are being made. And so the limit to how much kombucha you can drink is only predicated on how it makes you feel. And so if you're drinking kombucha and you're in the bathroom more than you're used to and more than is comfortable, well, that's a sign to drink more water, dial it back, let your body adjust slowly, and then you can add it back in. But here's what I've discovered is when I first started drinking kombucha, I needed a lot. That was why my thirst outgrew my budget. And what I found, having drunk it now for 20 years, is that I'm more in a maintenance mode with it. And so I have a little bit here, a little bit there. And really, because depending on, the type of kombucha you're consuming, a lot of the commercial brands are a little softer, they're a little easier. They're not trying to send you to the bathroom right away. And so you might be able to consume more commercial kombucha than homebrew, because homebrew, you choose how potent that's going to be. And so my brew tends to be a little on the tiny side, which I really enjoy. And that means I can consume a little bit less of it because I'm getting more of those organic acids. And of course, I can always temper it with a little bit of water, a little bit juice at the time of drinking it if I find it's a little too sour. But that said, it really is trust your gut. What is your body telling you? And this is what I love about kombucha and process is also closing those feedback loops. Like so often, for example, folks with candida overgrowth, they're like, I crave sugar because the microbes in their gut are saying, give me sugar. You eat that sugar. It might taste good on your tongue, but now you've got a rash. Now you've got brain fog. Now you feel bloated. Well, if you're closing that feedback loop, the sugar isn't actually doing what you want it to do. Sure, it tastes good, but then you're getting all these negative side effects. And so drinking kombucha is actually really helpful for folks with candida overgrowth. They might think, well, there's yeast in kombucha. Is that going to negatively impact it? And the short answer is no. Actually, you end up going through a die-off period. And so a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't like the smell of kombucha, or oh, I don't want this, actually probably need it. It's more than likely that the microbes are recognizing, oh no, if this stuff gets in here, that means I'm kaput, right? My biofilm is going to be liquidated. I'm not going to have anywhere to live. This is going to destroy my livelihood. And I like being all this overgrowth, right? And so, but again, it's trust your gut. You have to be ready and willing to go through that process. It can be a little uncomfortable at first, and yet once you accumulate the desire, and it literally just makes you feel good.
Can anyone have kombucha? Like, is it safe for women, pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and what about children?
So yes, again, we go back to the trust your gut philosophy. So, human beings have been feeding fermented foods and drinks to their children since the dawn of time. Now, is that something you want to do? I think that you as a parent get the option of choosing what's best for you and your family. In terms of pregnant women or breastfeeding women, it definitely has benefits. But what I've also observed and had, people tell me is, well, I love kombucha. I got pregnant. I couldn't stand the smell of it. Well, maybe that's your body saying it's not right for me right now. Other women have said, I drank it all through my pregnancy. It helped with the digestive issues. It gave me a little bit of B vitamin support. It helped with the swelling and allowing that to shrink somewhat. So if you're able to tolerate it and enjoy it, it actually can be very supportive for these transitional stages of life. And again, it's just up to you to decide what is best for me and my family.
But is there somebody who cannot have kombucha or who shouldn't?
So the folks who are probably not going to be able to tolerate kombucha are those with a histamine allergy. So histamine is something that our body's naturally able to process, except when we're in states of gut dysbiosis and we're lacking those mechanisms. And so those folks, while they may consume kombucha or other fermented foods because they hear they're good for them and they think, oh, this is going to help me, what ends up happening is a lot of bloating, some discomfort. And so again, it's kind of difficult to discern, is this die-off because of, something like a candida overgrowth and I'm rebalancing, or is there an actual issue going on here? And so if you don't have clarity, the best thing you can do is get a test. Just get a test to make sure you don't have a histamine allergy. And then once you do that gut repair and your gut comes back to a healthier state, you will be able to include kombucha, cheese, and everything else that's loaded with histamines and flavor back into your diet.
There is so much information available on the internet and social media these days. How do you navigate what's true and what isn't?
What's true is what's on Kombucha Camp's site. What's true is what's in our book. But that's honestly, to be 1,000% transparent, that is literally why I started my website. I would go online, I'd read these circular stories. There weren't references. What you're going to find in the Big Book of Kombucha is an entire appendix that lists research and studies that have gone on kombucha, because that's what I'm really passionate about. I'm passionate about dispelling the myths, helping people understand that kombucha is here to help us, and what are the different mechanisms by which that happens. That's what we cultivate from the research. So there are going to be people online that say, oh, you don't need a SCOBY. And while it's true, you can take a bottle of kombucha, assuming it's a raw kombucha, pour it into a glass, and it will grow a culture. The problem is, in order to be a commercial product, you have to lengthen shelf life. You probably have to add different probiotics. You might be filtering it, so you're not getting the full complement of organisms present. And so many people have mistakenly thought, oh, the SCOBY's the liquid. No. The SCOBY is still the culture, and it's its immune system. And so it's a really vital piece. And like I like to say, just because you can brew it without a SCOBY doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean that that's the best practice. So it's fun to experiment. It's fun to test your commercial brews to see how viable they are. Can they grow a culture or not? And at the end of the day, you really just, because it's like a magic seed, once you have it, it just continues to grow. You want to invest in the best. And that's what we have. We have better SCOBYs at Kombucha Camp. And so I highly recommend them to anyone. In fact, people give them away, right? You grow them, you give them to your friends. It's a weird business model, I have to say. But it's kind of like a farmer who grows a really amazing product. People then cultivate the seeds and they give them to friends. And that's what we're doing with our fermentation cultures here.
Now, if you're wondering that Hannah only loves kombucha, think again. I wanted to find out which other fermented foods does she really enjoy having and how does she try including it in her diet.
Before I drank kombucha, I thought sauerkraut smelled like dirty socks and there was no way I was going to eat any of that. And now I absolutely love sauerkraut. And sauerkraut is really just, it's fermented cabbage, but all kinds of vegetables can be fermented. I mean, if you can get it from the farmer's market, you can probably ferment it. And that's what's really great, is you can get super creative with fermenting all kinds of things. So sauerkraut is one of my favorites. It's really great condiment for especially meat or, foods that are hard to digest. And this is, you start to realize, oh, this is why they put sauerkraut on a Reuben. You got to digest all this meat and cheese. You need some help. Another one I really love, especially if you're finding kombucha is a little too intense, is water kefir or tibikos. And so this is literally just a sugar water ferment. That said, that sugar water ferment, that water kefir, can then be used to ferment fruit juice, to ferment nut milk. So it really has these fermentive capacities for a broad range of substrates depending on what you're trying to infuse with good probiotics. And then thirdly, we also have milk kefir. And milk kefir is right? This is Bulgaros. This is from the ancient mountains. This is Mohammedan gifted it to mankind. And it's really amazing. It's powerfully potent. It's way better for you than yogurt in the sense that it's a very diverse product and it's super easy to make at home. And it's really great for folks who need to rebuild their mucosal lining. So you're getting the benefits of the milk without the lactose. So it's for folks who might, a lot of people think they're lactose intolerant when in fact they're pasteurization intolerant, because pasteurization kills the native microbes that actually would eat the lactose and make it easier for humans to digest. And so milk kefir is a great one to add And then we have 𝐿, which is kombucha's raw honey cousin. So for some folks, they want to avoid processed sugars, and so they like using the honey. Now, the honey's more expensive, and it has a different flavor profile, but it also makes a really delightful, delicious fermented beverage. So the 4 cultures we have are kombucha, 𝐿, milk kefir, and water kefir. And then I just love I love beet kvass. I love the fermented veggies are just so yum and fun to play with.
So you heard it. You don't have to have literally everything that is available. Look what is local and indigenous to you. There are so many fermented foods which are local to the parts where you belong, like pickles from where I come from, yogurt, sauerkraut, kombucha, kimchi. These are the popular ones. Miso. There are so many. Cheese is a kind of fermented food itself, and that is why I always enjoy having some. All you need to make sure is that you have at least a little less part of your meal, and then you'll be all set. Now comes my favorite question that I always like asking. So Hannah, what message will you give your younger self and to everyone listening to you today?
Trust your gut. Follow your heart. Follow your journey. We are all here on this beautiful paradise called planet Earth to learn things from Earth School. I don't know. That's just my personal outlook. And that can fit in any kind of framework you want it to, because really what we're here is to learn how to love with as much of our hearts as we can. And sometimes, a lot of times we're going through challenges and it can feel difficult to have love in those moments. And yet, when we let everything go and come back to it, it truly is all we need. And I don't mean it can sound really trite when you say something like, oh, all you need is love. And yet, when you think about creating relationship, creating community, connecting with family, so much of what it is we're doing is creating this beautiful, loving energy. And we need challenge, we need contrast in order to enjoy the light side of that. And so embrace all of it. Life is fun. Life is amazing. It's messy. It's dirty. And it's beautiful. And so just enjoy the journey. Trust your gut. It's going to lead you to where you need to go and for what's best for you, and just have fun.
Wow, that is incredible. Thank you so much, Hannah. You're a wealth load of knowledge and wisdom. If you are interested in brewing your own kombucha, and I'm going to start doing it myself, I'll leave all the links in the description below. All you need is a glass jar and a SCOBY, and I personally feel Kombucha Camp is one of the great resources you have to begin your journey. I'll make sure I leave all the links in the description below. Also, to make it easier for you, Hannah and her team have agreed to give a special discount, so make use of the code DRDoctor15 to get a 15% off when you check out. Alrighty, now we've reached the end of the fun part of the show, Rapid Fire with Dr. Doctor. It's just a fun little way of getting to know our expert even more and simply just to have some fun. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. If you were to be inflicted with a disease or health condition, which one would you choose?
I would choose cancer because I know it's showing me where I need to let go of grief and find more love.
Wow, that was deep. I didn't expect you to choose that though. I don't think I would have. Alright, what was your last search on Google?
My last search on Google was for we're looking to adopt a new pet. So I've been looking up new rescue dogs to love.
Wow, okay. If you were an animal, what would you be?
Oh, I'm a lion.
Lion, wow.
Yeah.
Can you share any unconventional or quirky health tips that you swear by?
I mean, I think kombucha is pretty dang quirky, but that said, I don't wear sunglasses. I want the sun to get into my eyes because that's going to help my body understand when I've had too much or not enough. I'm someone who doesn't wear sunscreen for the same reason, because I'm going to trust that my eyes are going to tell me when I've been out too much, or I might use a light coating of a coconut oil. I'm very much a nature girl over here, little bit of a hippie.
How long do you think you'll live up to?
Well, 100 at least, so I know a lot of people get worried about death and things like this. I don't know. I'm a Scorpio. It's all about death and transformation over here. And so I just have decided I'm not even going to worry about it. And I trust I'll live to 100. I've got great DNA, my genes, my ancestors. And if it happens before then, so be it.
What did you have for breakfast this Sunday?
This morning or on Sunday?
On Sunday.
Okay, let's see.
I'm testing your memory.
On Sunday, I had quiche. So we make, I think if they rebranded it to breakfast pie, it might be more popular here in the United States. But that said, we absolutely love getting eggs and spinach and cheese and all kinds of things together in our quiche. And that's one of my favorite things to have on the weekend. A little side salad with some oil and vinegar. Yeah.
All right. So you remember everything. That's perfect. I was just trying to catch you off guard. So now we move on to the next segment, which is called This or That. Ready?
Okay.
The moon or the sun?
Moon.
Rich and famous or rich and unknown?
Rich and unknown.
Okay. Lose sleep or skip a meal?
Skip a meal.
The lips or the eyes?
The eyes.
Sourdough or sauerkraut?
Sauerkraut.
Curry or stir fry?
Stir-fried curry?
That's a nice one. Painful truth or comforting lie?
Painful truth.
I think you did pretty well. Now we are going to take a little detour, but when I heard Hannah say she does not apply sunscreen, I was like, wait a minute. So you know me, I'm not one to give up. Did I convince Hannah? Since you mentioned you don't apply sunscreen, and I'm a dermatologist, so because there's one thing that like I ask everyone is safe sun exposure, and the reason being I have seen a lot of skin cancers in my practice, like day in and day out we see it, and it gets me worried because I myself am a firm believer in safe sun exposure. I believe in getting, because I think the sun is this vital force that has this life-giving energy that we need to get. But I also believe that the amount of sun that we are getting exposed to today compared to what our ancestors were, it is much more, and we are seeing a lot more cases. Probably even like the ozone is getting depleted. We know around Australia, we are getting reports at other places of the world as well. So why don't you wear sunscreen?
I don't wear sunscreen because I trust my gut. And here's what I mean by that. I would apply it and my skin would go, ooh, this feels so disgusting. Why is this on here? And I think what we've come to understand over the years is that a lot of the chemicals they were putting into the sunscreen is actually not very good for your skin or the water or the animals. And so I think I just defaulted to this no sunscreen. Now here's the reality. I'm not typically out in the sun, like just hanging out outside for long periods of time. I'm outside, I'm taking a walk, I'm wearing a hat, so I wear protective clothing, I would say, is my preferred method of sunscreen. And of course, if I'm going to be outside for long periods of time, I will probably add a sunscreen, because if not, I'll end up burned.
Well, she's responsible and she knows, and as she always says, listen to your gut. She believes in safe sun exposure and has agreed and promised me that she will apply sunscreen if she's going to be out in the direct sun for more than 15 minutes. Yabba dabba doo! Alrighty, this is a wrap. I'm Dr. Sanober Pezad Doctor, your host of the channel Healthy Aging with Dr. Doctor. I'm incredibly grateful to Hannah and all the other experts that join us to create this healthy, engaging and vibrant community. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon, and stay tuned because our next guest is going to share something very, very special. I wish the very best for you and your family. As always, continue to glow, thrive and shine. Take care. I'll see you soon.